Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Agile Cool Kid podcast. We are a group of Agile enthusiasts, practitioners, and thinkers from many different backgrounds, exploring and having fun. We like to compare, contrast, and discover new ideas and deeper meanings of applying Agile to the future of work and life. With us is today Francesca Rosin. Hello, Francesca.
Hi, Agnieszka, how are you?
Oh, I am great. Thank you for asking. Francesca is an experienced agile coach and entrepreneur. She's an Italian living in Germany. She enjoys helping people through change. And with us today is Blaž Erčul as well. Hi, Blaž.
Hello, Agnieszka.
Blaž is an avid animal lover from Slovenia. He worked in hearing aid field for 8 years. Insight Discovery licensed practitioner and agile enthusiast freelancer, and started his own journey. We have as well with us today Don Ewart. Hi, Don.
Hi, Agnieszka.
Don is a senior agile coach living in the UK and originally from Scotland. He has worked in Japan, Singapore, and London. He has been a contractor and consultant for over 2 decades across many different industries. With us is as well Maria Aleman. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Yara, how are you?
Oh, I am very excited today. Maria is yesterday a passionate project manager, and today an agile believer and practitioner, and always a people passionate. She works with people, teams, and companies to help them to achieve their maximum potential. She has a personal manifest, which is try it because life is too short to be frightened. And I am Agnieszka Szymańska. I am a people expert, and I'm very passionate about spreading Agile across different departments and sectors. After almost 10 years living and working in China, I am currently living in Germany. And our today's topic is feedback. What is exactly, how are the benefits, how we see them, what are the challenges we experienced, and what are our best takeaways for you, dear listeners, to try out? Who would like to start saying a few words, few sentences about what feedback is and how is your experience with it?
I'd like to start, if you don't mind. I've had recent conversations, and I'm talking about last week and the week before, with people that consider the word of feedback in a very negative way. They've had several negative experiences, especially when they were referring to the performance reviews type of feedback. On one side, from what they were saying, I realized that they are very nervous when this time of year comes, because this is like still in a lot of company is once a year. So feedback once a year. We will probably talk about it, that it's probably not the best idea. And also, I think some of them were traumatized by the people that were providing feedback, and they were not really, let's say, they were not being human, like really compassionate and empathetic human beings. I had the feeling that their experience was more about, yeah, this needs to be done. We need to, tick a box and move on. So this is what I wanted to share.
Yeah, I agree with you, Francesca. Similar story. I've been inside many companies where I hear about their they tie feedback only to their performance review once a year, from their manager or some faceless person. And yeah, it's really stressful time. I've just gone past it right in April, the beginning of April there. Yeah, and so when we come along and say, "Hey, everyone, we need to get feedback," it's like, "Whoa, whoa! No, I'm not doing that again." So yeah, I think we need to get away from thinking about performance reviews and giving someone useful, constructive feedback that's going to help them, which is, of course, what we need. What we want, positive things. That performance feedback, in my experience as well, I remember when I was working in permanent employment, and the feedback you would get would be, pretty terrible, really. There was very little. It's maybe the way that it's set up, but there's very little understanding of the achievements that you've done, outweighing the things that you could have done, perhaps, and only pointing at, well, you didn't meet your target. That's the impression, anyway. We need to get away from that. I was wondering that there's something I might come on to later after everyone's had an input, but I also want to understand it. Is there any cultural difference in where we are in the different parts of the world? Because listen to you, Francesca, it's the same here in the UK. Most people, turn their toes up at, oh no, it's feedback time. You want to you giving me feedback? Oh no, that's horrible. It's already, people are putting defenses up. I wonder if that's the same everywhere, or is it somewhere different? Blaž, how about you? What's your experience?
Well, my experience is, of course, that there are many deviations from the feedback that should be feedback. If we are always concentrating on the bottom line, it is normal that feedback is only a performance review, which is terrible, but it is, of course, connected. What I see with feedback is that sometimes there is no feedback. That is one deviation that I saw, that everybody is just stop talking to each other. Then there can be only negative feedback or only positive feedback. If we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings and we don't give them feedback, while we miss the chance of them to improve. And sometimes one of the deviations that I also saw was what I call explosive feedback, is that you are quiet for a long time and then just explode in a terrible manner and create a toxic environment. And then people start saying better no feedback than some feedback. And yeah. I don't know if it's only cultural, but what I observe is that sometimes people tend not to give positive feedback because they say, if I praise somebody, they will stop working hard. And sometimes we don't give negative feedback, maybe because we were raised that way. Like, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. So I think it comes from a very young age. It can come from a very young age, but then, of course, that's what happens if you do not speak to people on a daily basis. If you are not for interactions, if you are more for performance, then the normal feedback is just a performance review.
And sorry, to add to that just a tiny bit, sometimes I hear in companies that if you provide positive feedback, that's a danger because people will want to have more money. They will ask for pay rise. So, yeah.
I would like to explain also my experience. We are in the journey, I have to say, but in my company, there is something interesting. And specifically in my team, we are working on that. We have also performance reviews that are twice a year. But beyond that, we are trying to create a feedback culture. And the accountability of the feedback is in every person. No, we are all accountable of giving and receiving feedback. We really highlight the accountability piece close to feedback, no? So because preparing feedback is important for us, feedback should always come from a place of really caring for the person that you are going to provide the feedback, caring for their growth, not your own. It is not about your own ego, giving your opinion by the sake of giving your opinion. It's about caring for the other person. We have an agreement also about giving feedback to each other without asking. Sometimes we ask for feedback, but we have a team agreement about, okay, give me feedback whenever you consider that you have to give me feedback. I will also be critical with your feedback somehow, no? Because I am also accountable of reflecting about this feedback. And we are trying also like different techniques for providing this feedback. We always try to provide a mix between caring and challenging. Caring means this thing that I mentioned before, like I care about your growth. So my feedback is because I care about your growth. It's not only about using nice words, that also is important. So a mix between caring and challenging, and there are different techniques, glows and growths, the sandwich, clean feedback, whatever that you can use, and everyone probably needs to use the one that works better and try to discover what are the best practices and better ways. We are in the journey, I can say.
Yeah. That's right. I in the UK, there's one called, well, I guess it's everywhere, but one popular one is called SBI. Anyone heard of that one?
No.
It's 3 stages of giving feedback. SBI. What is the situation? So you tell the person, this is the situation that I saw. B is behavior. This is what I saw how you did, right? And then I is impact. Here's the impact of what you did in that situation, SBI. Actually, I don't think it's a very good one because it sort of leaves you at a cliffhanger and goes, in that situation, I saw you do this, and that was that. It could come across as very accusatory. There's another one that's called, that I like, it's called CEDAR. I'm not going to go through it all now, but CEDAR. It has a lot more of the caring side to it that Maria was talking about. So that's a framework that's pretty good. And we'll put a reference into the notes about it. But I think also one of the things that I just heard recently was from Daniel Pink. And he posted something on LinkedIn that said, we shouldn't say, do you want feedback? Because that, has that negative connotation. He said, we should say, would you like some advice? And if you countenance it at that, then it's a little bit more focused on helping the person rather than giving them something to deal with. You know what I mean? How does that, did you any of you see that one, or how does that land with you?
When it's the first time I heard those acronyms. And when you say, could I give you, or would you like me to give you an advice? The psychologist in me is just like screaming out loud, because in psychology, therapy, coaching, whatever, in all of those, giving advices is the worst stuff you can do, because people don't like getting advices, don't like following up on them, and it starts a lot of, or the potential is there, of defensive and a lot
But
of
would you rather
defensive
that, or
mechanism.
would you rather have that, or I'm going to give you some feedback now?
It's not for me either or, because there are so many different ways. And when I was reflecting on 2 aspects, what exactly it's feedback for me in the framework of what I would like to achieve with my action, which feedbacks can be one of those. And for me, the answer of that question is I like, or I want with my action to achieve 2 things: increase motivation and increase alignment with personal, for that person, team, and company goals. And for me, feedback is one of the tools to provide both increase motivation and increase alignment. And I use different wordings, depends on what words this person is using, how good I know this person, how much trust we already established or not at all, and emergency of the situation. And I was thinking about wordings like, would you like to share my view on that situation? Would you like me to share my perspective, my opinion? And this is not advice. And for me, this is the core of the feedback. Different people see different situation in different ways, and that's completely legit. This person has reasons to behave that way, and what I am giving as a gift is just extending, widening their perspective of different views at the same situation. And I was thinking of one recent example when how I was told, someone from my Agile department told person from another team to take remaining holidays from the last year. And it's not the role of HR to telling other team members to take holidays. And everyone in the team was like, how come it's not possible? It's the wrong way to do. While the manager of this person asked her, please tell me more about the situation of employee X taking those days. And it was exactly the opposite. The team member asked for taking those 2 remaining holidays. So we can, of course, discuss whether it's feedback or not, but for me, the core is extending the perspective, extending different point of views of the same situation, gaining more perspective, and letting person grow in that way, increasing the motivation by building trust and understanding. That's my 5 cents on that.
What I think Dan Pink was trying to do was bring it more to be a mentoring conversation than a feedback conversation, which is why I think he said advice. Because you can still give, you can start from a place of caring and start from a place of, here's what I observed, here's what has been going on, here's the impact it's had. Can I give you some advice that I've seen before? And it's just advice, it's just learning from someone else's experience, another point of view. So I think that's what he was trying to do. It was an interesting idea to get away from the word feedback, though. What do you guys think of that?
And I think my trigger is when you say like mentoring, I really like to set up the stage for equality. It means already mentoring is setting up the conversation not equally, while sharing different perspectives is for me more aligned with my values, being at the same stage, just having different point of view, but being equal in understanding and the value of both of us. But what you guys, I'm super curious what you think about like what feedback is, what is the value, what do you want to achieve with feedback?
Well, I would bring it back to you and say it depends. That's why you say sometimes, just because, of course, you have to have a reason, like why are you even giving the feedback? Then you have to ask yourself, who are you giving feedback to? Because if you know a team member, you can personalize the feedback, you know what their preferences are when communicating to them. Because we have, the 7-38-55 rule. So 7% of spoken words are what we get, 38% of voice and tone, how it's being said, and 55% of body language, which means it's not enough that you know what to say. You have to know how to say it and even when to say it. So that's sometimes more important than the words you are using, because I can say thank you in a quite inviting manner, or like thanks for that, like in a very aggressive manner. So it's not so much what you say, but how you say it, to who you say it, and when you say it. So I think that's something that you have to think about when giving feedback. What about you, Francesca and Maria?
Just go ahead.
Yeah, you got.
No, go.
No, you go, Maria. That's good.
Okay, well, I think for me the purpose of feedback is always the growth of the person that receives the feedback. I absolutely agree with Agnieszka that it's about extending the perspective, no? So regarding the advice piece, to be honest, there are several frameworks, and this is something that, for example, I used to see very often, in which you explain, for example, okay, this was the situation, and these were the facts I observed. Because, well, the feedback should be always based on something that is tangible for the people, and you can explain, okay, this was the impact for me, for example, or I think this was the impact for the team, or whatever that you think, and you can make a suggestion. What if, or can I suggest something? So, but always with respect. At the same time, so I think there is accountability in what you say, in the way you say. So it's not, you cannot give feedback. Well, I don't like what you did, so this is not a feedback for me, no? And also there is accountability in the person that receives the feedback in terms of analyzing and using this information for their personal growth, just to become a better version of ourselves. Sometimes the suggestion can be misaligned with your values, for example, or whatever. No? So you need to make a work also in this feedback reception. This is a bit my point of view.
Yeah.
I have to say that, Don, when you brought up Daniel Pink's video, I immediately remembered watching it a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of weeks, and I was very disappointed, very much disappointed. I really like Daniel Pink, and I think in that video he said something that could potentially turn him into somebody that I don't want to follow anymore.
Oh, really? Yes. I didn't see the video. I saw something else there.
Well, I just watched this short video when he was saying, say, would you like some advice instead of feedback? Now, I don't remember the exact words. And I remember hearing something like, in the conversation, you say, if I were you, I would, which is, it makes me shiver,
Okay.
I might be wrong, so I obviously I need to watch it again. But when I hear the word advice, and when Agnieszka was saying from the coaching point of view, this is terrible. I totally agree. I definitely agree. Whenever I hear somebody saying, would you like some advice? Then my answer is a big fat no, because advice goes from a point of view of a person that would tell you what they would do in your situation. A, you're never going to be in my situation. B, you are never going to understand what it means to be me in this situation. It's my system, my whole environment, and my background, and my whole experience, and my brain, and everything that could never belong to anybody else.
I understand that, but and I don't want to defend Dan Pink because it's not my idea. It's his idea. But what I think what I took away from it was, when we are being mentors, we are giving people the story of our experience that they can use in whatever way they can, right? That's what a mentor does. As we've been trained and as we've been taught, we now you could put a label on that as advice, right? So in my day, I would do this. I've done that before. In that situation, I did that. If you're in this situation, this is one alternative, or here's something that you could do, isn't it? So I'm taking maybe a bit blasé description of that as advice, different from as we've all seen, as you've explained. I'm going to give you some advice. And the benefit of my ego, of course, it's obvious that everyone should do this, right? And yeah, exactly. So I would like to rewrite the sort of definition a little bit. So when we say giving advice, of course, I mean, it's that, somewhat neutral. Here's the benefit of my experience. Take it or leave it. Here's how it's been before, right?
But that's the thing. Is it really neutral? Because obviously, if I offer to
neutral, as in up to you if you want to do it.
Yeah. I was also thinking of another aspect, the fact that if I offer advice, I feel like I'm better than the other person, or
in the
that's the
power.
perception. That's a perception, at least. And if somebody comes to me to ask for advice, they probably think that I have more experience or I'm more qualified to talk about this or whatever that is, right? So I put myself in, or they put me in a position of, higher level anyway. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are not at eye level. We're not at the same level in that sense. So I don't know if this is the perception, and of course it needs to be clarified maybe with the person. If they think that I'm better than them, at least in this area, whatever I say might be taken as, oh, that's the truth. I need to do that because she did it. And then it's, influencing them maybe a way too much.
Can I say something?
After that,
Okay.
I want to say, I'm
Do you want
queue,
to?
and I am seeing John would like to say, so let's do it.
Do you want to go first?
But we've only got 10
you
minutes
go,
left.
you go.
We've only got 10 minutes left, so Maria, go.
I was going to say that it looks like the wording is important somehow, the words we use. And I was thinking immediately in non-violent communication, it can be also very useful for that. And I was remembering a case that has happened to me last week. No, I am trying to improve my public speaking. No, so the people is giving me a lot of feedback whenever I have to talk in front of other people. No. So, for example, I received a piece of feedback, and it was about, okay, you speak very fast, no? Sometimes I don't manage to understand you. For example, why don't you slow down a bit? So I didn't take this like a bad thing. It sounds more like a suggestion. Why don't you try to slow down a bit? So for me, it was not like, but I agree that sometimes when the words, if I were you, I would slow down. Sounds horrible to me.
Yeah.
Also, no, I just wanted to share this perspective.
Because that's not advice, that's opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds, but what if you try to slow down just a bit? So it sounded good to me, like, oh, makes sense, no?
Yeah.
So, Aga, go ahead, sorry.
No, Don was before me. Don,
Okay.
would you like to?
No, go ahead.
I was having several points popping up in my mind. First, Francesca, what you were saying, it popped in my mind. Part of that is described in the psychology like a power dynamic. And you immediately are setting up in that power dynamic above the person, like being better. So I know the description power dynamic. And then it popped in my mind reverse mentoring, which in my mind support even more. There is no ultimate better and higher and blah blah. It's really everyone bringing amazing stuff to the table, despite age, despite whatsoever. That's why we have the framework of reverse mentoring. And then my brain tried to give them all a bigger framework. And what pop up in that moment is my mind clustered those opinions in different big company culture framework. And if we go with more, and this is really not better and worse for me, it's just different approaches and frameworks. If we start with, or if we go with a framework of more hierarchical organization, then it's very much aligned, talking about mentoring, giving advice. It's very much matching and fitting. And why I feel so much, I'm so disturbed when I hear this like mentoring and advisors, because I come both from my educational background as a psychologist and the way I work and set up company cultures is very much holacracy. It means very flat hierarchies, very paying attention to as much as possible diversity, inclusion, belonging, and that's a very big part of it, that everyone is equal. Although nobody is equal in that sense of inclusion, like everyone brings their strength to the table, and then you are you are talking about widening perspective and sharing, and not this part of power dynamic, like more in the hierarchical setup. So that's very, for me, how I aligned all our or how my mind aligned all our opinions in a bigger framework. And when I listen to you, Maria, one of the framework I know is the I perspective, and one of the ways to give feedback what I like, because it's very I heard like so warm in my heart thinking about it. Like if I would listen to you, and if that would be too fast for me, I would say something, and I feel it's really so warm for me. Like, Maria, I value your opinion so much. You brought so much like about in previous podcasts. You brighten my interest so much. I would really appreciate if you could slow down a little bit so I can understand and gain more of what you are telling me. And that's, we can of course discuss whether it's feedback or not, but that's very much coming from not only caring for your growth, but putting up the trustful and warm, heart-centered, strengthening that connection. And still, it might come wrong with some people, but for me, it's the most aligned to my values and the most heart-centered. Yeah, I came up with.
and there's a level of appreciation in what you just said, Agnieszka.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were appreciating what Maria is doing, and you want more. So a bit selfish if you want to, but hey, good for both of you. So that's cool.
I think also what Francesca you're saying about that power dynamic. I mean, that's really tricky because and as Blaž said, it's about who are you giving advice to, or who are you giving feedback to. Is it someone junior who's only been in work for a few years? Is it someone who's a peer, or is it someone who's a superior, or a leader, or a and in our role, we have to do all of it. Right? We often have to give feedback to, and also, I guess my impression is that younger folks like to are more open to getting feedback and advice because they might be aware that they don't know. Look, they have still got lots to learn, and they want to know, and they want to get on. And older folks are the opposite. They don't need advice because they've seen it, they've done it, right? So, and I'm wondering about different generations now. So I think I'm Generation X. I think most of you are. Are you guys all millennials? I'm going to be. Hopefully, I'm not offending anyone. If you're on the board, certainly in my generation, it felt like when I was young, everyone was giving me advice all the time, and no one was listening to actually what I needed. And I'm really hoping that in your generation and the ones to follow, in this new world of work, that's turning around, and that people are listening to understand what do people really need, what are they asking for, what do they see as their growing edge, and how can oldies like me, give them the benefit of what I've done, if that's useful.
Yes, I think I have a last thought about it. When I'm hearing our conversations and how we tend to gravitate towards one word that might offend us or, let's say, make us emotional, most of it, when you are giving feedback, you're influencing someone. I think in a way you want to influence them at that moment based on their performance or anything. But since we come from different cultural backgrounds, we come from different age groups, I think that in the end, companies tend to gravitate toward, let's say, very neutral performance reviews just because they don't want to deal with the human factor. And it's much easier to just look at the numbers instead of thinking, okay, maybe it's not good that I tell Francesca that I'm going to give her advice. Okay, what do I have to think when giving feedback to Don? What do I have to think when giving feedback to Agnieszka? And I think it all comes down to that we do not put individuals and interactions in front of processes and tools, and we just do a neutral thing in the end.
Yeah.
Wow, what a beautiful sum up.
Yes, absolutely. But it's so true.
You said something that resonated a lot with me also, and this is feedback is really a powerful tool that can be even harmful sometimes for some people, because sometimes the feedback can evoke a lot of emotions inside ourselves. So I want to highlight this accountability path. That before giving feedback to somebody, I think we need to ask ourselves, okay, what do I want to help Maria grow with her public speaking, or do I want to show Maria how good and excellent I am speaking in public? No, so I think there is something important there. And also in the person that receives feedback, I think sometimes we receive feedback that is not so useful. And there is also a part of us analyzing this feedback and using this feedback to grow in the proper way.
Yeah.
And I think that one big chunk that was missing in this conversation was the fact that just because we have a feedback to provide to somebody does not necessarily mean that somebody is ready to receive it. So asking them if they are ready to receive it is the first act of care that we owe the other person. If we receive a yes, yeah, of course, by all means, then we can share it. But if that's a no, that's it. Later, or whenever they come back to us, or maybe never. That's probably the first question that we should consider.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what Maria was talking about earlier is really important, that the company should have that culture of feedback, that feedback is not only offered, but it's encouraged, it's invited. And when someone says, can we talk, everyone, you're ready to listen and you're ready to understand, okay, we're going to do this. And it's not coming from a place of ego or anything else. It really is, I'd like to help you if you like, that type of thing. Getting that culture right, though, is a huge uphill struggle in some places.
I don't know whether this process has a name yet. Probably yes, because I cannot think I'm the first one doing that. But I have been implementing something what I called, for a lack of a better name, inverse feedback, which means I'm not implementing culture of feedback in a sense what most people would understand. Giving feedback, I am implementing the culture, feedback culture, from asking for feedback. So this is what I am role modeling, and this is for me like a step before, and kind of not going into the stuff of resistance, how to give it, asking, which I, by the way, very often forget more often than not, asking for permission. And this is my processual idea how to outsmart all of that. So when I was doing my first in the new company, All Hands, the first what I did, I pinged like 4 or 5 people asking for feedback, that just to give you a very short idea. And what I, as I have been doing this for a few months already, like 3, I am so amazed that it's already get established. People started to ask for feedback after some important events. And then you do not have so much struggle with giving feedback, because you outsmart and put a first step in front of when people are eager to receive. They take charge of their own development, and you do not need so much to care for somebody's growth. I switched for more switch in a sense put on the dimension moved people to more ownership, to more intrinsic motivation for their own growth. And for me, it's the most amazing, because the most lazy way of doing people and culture, just let people do that. Let them own the process and take care for their own growth. So yeah, for me, giving feedback is way more asking to receive one. Final thoughts. As we are approaching the end of our podcast, is there something like your biggest takeaway, your final thoughts, what you would like to share before wrapping up and finishing?
My final thought would be that you know, all transformations that we're trying to do need to have this as an early start, an early part of it. You know, changing the culture of organizations, I think, needs to have this part in from the beginning. It's so important, not only for agile transformations, but just the health of a company.
Yes, I agree. Don, definitely. This feedback culture, and as Agnieszka was just saying, just get it done, just get it started, right?
Yeah.
Ask for feedback so that people will eventually they will follow, they will follow your example and they will just start doing it. So this is probably something that in every company there should be something like that, starting maybe at team level and then going up. Yeah, I like that.
I like the thought of feedback culture also, but don't make it a part of the problem. Like, there is a feedback culture in our company, so I don't have to say anything to anyone because somebody else will. So don't step over the injured people, help them out and give them feedback. But
on my side, I loved the way in which Aga gave me feedback about slowing down. So I am going to try to apply some learning in my own way, because I found it was very, very kind. And I really loved the way I struggle a bit with the language, because I am not a native speaker. I always think that I am clever in Spanish, but I really loved the way you did. So I am going to think about that. So it was really a highlight for me today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so kind. Thank you. It makes me so feel so good. Thank you. And my final thoughts, I'm a huge fan of positive reinforcement. So I have a struggle with feedback because most people understand like something other needs to correct anyway, but I do not use so much the word feedback anyway. I just do positive reinforcement and highlight the strength of people when they put them to play, and when in that framework of motivation, positive reinforcement, when I ask people to give me feedback to receive, I see how happy, how motivated they are to contribute, and that's such a amazing for me positive spiral upwards, and this is the part of the process I like so much, like bringing constructive but not negative, constructive upwards growth spiral to the company. Thank you so much. It was so lovely for me, and thank you, Blaž. Thank you, Maria, Francesca, and thank you so much, Don, to participating and sharing your thoughts. And
thanks,
I would
Aga.
like to, thank you. I would like to finalize by asking our listeners, please share with us what are your biggest struggles with feedback. What is your worst feedback you ever got? What's the situation? How you deal with the situation? And please, not to please close it in if you want, a positive way. What is the feedback you still think because you were amazed by that and positively influenced your growth? That would be lovely to hear from you and to read your thoughts on that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also give us feedback. Bye.
Give us feedback, boys. Give us feedback, boys. Thank you so much.